Hey everyone, this is Tom Brennan. Welcome to the Electoral Dysfunction World News Headquarters here in beautiful Parkchester, the Bronx. Those of you who don't know what Electoral Dysfunction is, it's a show we do once a month at the People's Improv Theater currently, where a panel of comedians and experts talk about the news of the week. And we can't do the show right now because we all have to stay inside because of COVID-19, coronavirus. Right now, we are early days. It is March 21st, and we are trying to reduce the spread here in New York City and across the country, and we're doing our part. But I got exhausted of being in my house and having a panic attack every time I sneeze or sniffle or cough, as I just did. I need to talk to people. So we're going to try this out. We're going to try and do a show. We got a great panel with us later on. We're going to talk about the news of the week. We're going to talk about COVID-19. We're going to talk about Senator Richard Burr's shenanigans, the Cuomo boys getting into it with each other, the Democratic primary, and of course, the President of the United States, who is, as of this recording, still Donald John Trump. Really glad you're here. Ned Thorne, star wipe me to the guest.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Read all about it.
Oh, this is outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, Newsboy Phil is here. Newsboy Phil, the 1920s newsboy stuck in a 2020 world. Phil, how are you?
Oh, hey, how's it going, Tom? Not so well, but I'm making the sale of paper. Not so much the news. The housing market will be better if people left their houses, but,
Well, it's good to... Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
I was going to say back in 1918, we sang Hello, My Baby from the rooftops, but now we got a bunch of celebrities singing Imagine or something. So that's cool.
Yeah.
And guess what? It did nothing then. Read all about it. You can't. They're all dead.
Oh, man. That would be great if Charlie Chaplin had sung Hello, My Baby from the rooftops and they had all just set up film cameras and done a 45 hour-long setup just to get one shot of film that no one saw. So how are you? How are you taking this pandemic? You've seen them before. You've endured them for years.
If he sang Smile today, he'd get canceled.
How are you and your family enduring this, my friend? How's everything going?
Oh boy, I wish my parents were still in contact with me so as I could tell them to not contact me. But as it is, I watched the Cuomo brothers battle it out on television in the arena of mainstream media. I wish my brother was still alive to tell me I'm unloved. Read all about it.
Oh, that's so sad and also true. And because it's true, that is what makes it sad. So tell me about life on the street right now, selling papers in a lockdown world. What's happening out there? What are you hearing?
I can't get close enough to them. They keep stealing my newspaper bundles for their butts. But you know what? I like to keep a finely caked mound of dirt on my face so as to get in with the adults. Because we don't need them. I'm going to get them sick with whatever I got. I'm telling you, you think Corona's bad? Think about a 100-year case of shingles. All I know is that animals can't catch coronavirus, which is why the bed of cats I sleep on is safe.
A 100-year case of shingles sounds terrible, but a bed of cats sounds comfortable for you, not for the cats.
That's true. So what's in the news? I just checked in to see the condition of Kenny Rogers, and too soon. Read all about it.
That's very too soon.
So yeah, where do we begin? Rudy Gobert licked some mics and said he wasn't afraid of Corona. Now he's got it, and so does all the NBA. I don't have a punchline. That's just human stupidity, folks. New York is only salvation of road sodas, and they're still not getting the memo to stay inside. You got alcohol companies are making hand sanitizer. Clothing companies are making masks. We're still waiting on the Democratic Party to make a president. Read all about it.
Whoa, burn.
Yeah. We're up from today, where we've hit 10,356 today. There's only 45,000 tests in the state of New York available. That's really no way to run a newspaper business, but this isn't the newspapers. Yeah, I know, I'm going a little stir crazy. There's not too many people in the streets, and no one really wants to talk to me because they know I'm a carrier. So just kind of getting high on my own supply of the news, which is all the same thing. Things are bad. Things are real bad. Mostly just nerves. So how you doing over there, Tom? I see you've got walls.
I do have walls, Newsboy Phil. I am recognized this week just how lucky I am to have 4 walls and a roof, and at sometimes working water.
You got a roof, an aristocrat. That's great.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that the outside world is as terrible as it seems from where I sit inside. I haven't gone outside in about 48 hours. That may have been the case before this pandemic, that I would stay in for 48 hours, but knowing I can't go outside is making it difficult for me. Should I be more grateful to be inside?
Well, the weather's beautiful. You just got to wear gloves to enjoy it.
Oh man, Newsboy Phil, it's a pleasure to see you. I'm glad to know that the world falling apart, some things still stay the same, and you're out there working your butt off, getting it done.
And all I'm looking for is some reassurance. I was watching the president's press conference the other day when the journalist asked him for something to assure scared Americans such as myself, and he told him he was a bad reporter. I don't know what I expected. But watching Anthony Fauci, the head of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, touch his face just as that happened is almost as if to watch a man take his own life, like watching the Bud Dwyer tapes. A man just be like, okay, here we go. Let's do this. I'm 70. Like, it's over, folks. let's just find a hole for 2 weeks. Just get a bunch of beefaroni and just eat it. Or, tennis balls. That's what I go for.
You eat tennis balls?
Yeah, good for fiber. Also good for, it's, I like texture. I'm a creature of texture.
Right. Tennis balls clear you out a little bit. They make it a smooth ride.
Also, there's nothing inside, so it's like empty calories.
Nothing inside the tennis ball, or nothing inside you at this point?
Yes.
Oh man, Newsboy Phil, it has been a pleasure to have you with us. It's been an honor to see you again. We miss you. Hopefully one day we'll do this show in front of people again. And if you can put that hat over a hazmat suit, you'll be welcome to join us again.
What's a hazmat suit? Bye.
Newsboy Phil, ladies and gentlemen. Ned Thorne, star wipe us to the panel. All right, we're back with our panel. Talk about the news of the week. Really excited to have all of these folks here. First up, coming to us live from Studio City in Los Angeles. You can see her on Netflix's Astronomy Club, Keisha Zollar, and you can read his writings all over the internet, particularly in Vox. He has a great piece about being a still model. Andrew Kimler. Hey, guys, how are you?
Hey.
Coming out of Sunnyside, Queens. You've seen his stuff on the Onion Sports and Layoff Kids. James Hesky. Hey, James.
Hey, how's it going?
Woohoo! Hiding out in upstate New York, the Magnet Theater's own Ann Herberger. Hey, Ann.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. Hi, guys.
And editorial columnist for the New York Daily News, my buddy, my pal, my lifelong chum, Mr. Robert George. Robert, how you doing?
Woo.
Hey guys.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us from your various quarantines. I'm going to start off with something that may shock the panel, because I got a nice mix of political elites and coastal elites. I'm going to give President Trump credit.
Uh-oh.
What?
Hear me out.
Uh-oh.
10 days ago, March 11th, he does an Oval Office address. And in that address, among other things, he basically, I'd say the summary of that address was, don't worry, we got this. Don't panic. Don't freak out. And I feel like instantly we all saw that and we're like, oh shit, we should be panicking and freaking out. So I think we owe him one. He really, to me, he woke up like midway through that speech. I was like, oh, this is going to be really bad.
I can't believe that was 10 days ago. That feels like 6 months ago.
That was 10 days ago.
The thing is, though, I hate to disagree with my good friend Tom here, but
you think President Trump is nailing it? You think he's doing a great job? 4 more years?
No, I wasn't quite going to go that way. I was going to say I think you are right that the moment did set in on that 10 days. Wednesday night, but I don't think it was when the president was speaking. I think it was 5 minutes afterwards when it was announced that Tom Hanks had turned positive, and then 5 minutes after that, the NBA said they were shutting down. I think that's when people say, "Oh," as the young kids say, "Shit got real."
That's right. Yeah, Tom Hanks, now property of Australia, I believe. So
right, and then Idris Elba was personal heartbreak for me. But here's what I think President Trump did. Here's where I think you're right, Tom. Here's where I think we owe him a debt of gratitude, and to take to take your phrase, Robert, where shit got real. What it did was woke up governors, mayors, any state and local officials that were trying to figure out what to do. It forced them to look at their own emergency preparedness plans and enact them. And whether it meant calling in the National Guard in New Rochelle just to make sure that they all stayed quarantined because that was such a hot pocket in the beginning of this disaster, which I think it is. But I think you've seen governors, especially across the country, take matters into their own hands and just say to the feds, great, send me the money. We'll use you as a resource, but you know what? No need to help us. We're going to handle this.
Yeah. Andrew and I keep talking about it. We're like, oh no, are we accidentally falling into states' rights at the worst time when for federal action where we should have been ramping up and like thinking outside of the box. We have all these great industries, like Italy's putting car manufacturers to work to manufacture.
Right.
That's the thing the federal government should have been thinking about weeks ago. So we could pivot faster while more of the public is still healthy. So
and Keisha, to your point, I come from a state, lived in Florida for 18 years when we went through 18 or 19 tropical storms, hurricanes. And one of the things that Governor Bush did was, before he even took office, said, we will have a preparedness plan that rivals no others. And the fact that the Trump administration did away with the basically pandemic council or group through the National Security Council that deals with this stuff. They had run simulations last year, failed them miserably, and here we are. And
because when I think of people who handle disasters well, I think of the Bush brothers.
Well, but you know what, James? We can laugh about that, and I'm going to come back at you on it. But
please do.
Yeah, but in Florida, that's exactly when you look at
Jeb
92.
Was the smart one, but I'm making him pay for his brother's sins. But
but the minute the winds died down, there were points of distribution. The National Guard was ready to go, and people got what they needed, whether it was water, ice, availability to food, and it wasn't like 92 where people were basically holding up signs to the news helicopters saying, please save me.
Yeah, I think it's well, yeah, you're right. In Jeb's state, that is true. I think it's what is crazy though is that this is what we all knew was going to happen, or were afraid was going to happen one day, and I hate to keep bashing. No, I don't hate to keep bashing people like Jeb. But people like Jeb all knew that Trump was this dangerous and this crazy, and never spoke up in a way that mattered in 2016. Never spoke up in a way that mattered. They did that.
Wait, James.
That quiet stuff where they said, we're going to quietly vote for Hillary. Instead of saying, this is unacceptable, we're not going to let this guy take charge. Absolutely not. We voted for Hillary and we'll live to fight another day, and publicly do that. And
I think you're mixing up Mom and Dad and Jeb. Jeb was yeah.
And I want to let you respond to that, but I saw Andrew, I think, had a point before.
Yeah.
I just want to let him.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying, like, Jeb Bush did run against Trump. I mean, he
right, but then up in the lead up to in the general, he was just gone. He wasn't anywhere.
And respond, please.
Well, two things. Number one, James, and again, I honor your opinion about that. Yeah. But having worked that campaign in 2012, I also saw a media who absolutely facilitated the candidacy of Donald Trump, starting to cover his rallies from the beginning before he took the stage through the end. No other candidate got that kind of coverage. They made this guy and have a lot to deal with that. Jeb was the only one standing on a debate stage saying, "You are insane. You are a chaos. You will be a chaos president. Are you kidding me?" And the rest of these guys, Cruz, Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, all acquiesced. Jeb continued after the election, after the primary, to very vociferously voice his opposition to Trump, much to the dismay of people who had supported him for 20 years. I mean, I can't work in Republican politics anymore, not that I want to, because I took a stand and worked for a never Trump candidate like Joe Walsh. Like him, don't like him, but again, couldn't sit by and watch this nightmare of a candidate continue to exist.
They knew it in 2016.
To Ann's point, there is a real legitimate concern. I don't. We're going to get into this in a moment. But Rachel Maddow on Friday had a great segment talking about, and we've also the Daily News has a similar editorial that's up right now, talking about the many falsehoods and misleading statements that Trump has been saying within the context of this crisis, and with this fear now to the point Andrew was saying about how the 2016, the new version of the 2016 rallies that the networks were showing unedited. Are the daily coronavirus task force updates. When he starts talking about how this new drug which was effective against malaria may be great against this, and Fauci in real time corrects him on that mildly so, but it's putting out this kind of false hope in the same way that the president downplayed all of this stuff in the months previous to it. So there is this fear that that he will be able to manipulate the media. The media realizes they have to cover the president in a crisis. I realize that, but when there's this much continued false information that's going out, you have to kind of figure out how do you temper that.
Go ahead, or Andrew.
Yes, I agree with your point, Robert. I think one of the issues with the media right now, and it's been an issue for a while, is they don't simply report.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. They don't simply report on whatever Trump is saying. They just quote him directly in headlines and then articles, and so people are getting their information or their news about Trump from Trump, and rather not it's not being filtered through any kind of journalistic point of view or contextualized. So instead, they're getting it straight. I think they're doing a terrible job right now in only amplifying Trump's very narrow talking points.
I want to make a couple of points, just kind of piggybacking off of that. I think now is not the time for any more cheerleading. The cheerleading is killing people. I don't care about the excellent job we're doing. It's not about any good job. It's about being honest with people. And what's for me, interesting. The psychology feel like I'm seeing is people's anxieties are being absorbed in the hoarding behaviors that we're all illustrating. And it's really frightening because it's an easy one-to-one that the cheerleading rings false, and that we need no more cheerleading, and we're displaying the cheerleading versus displaying the information.
I think that's a really great point. That's a great way to dovetail. Let's make sure we highlight some of the facts here. We talked a little bit about the politics, but right now across the country, I think as of this morning, something like 75 million Americans under some order to stay home. We have a count that is in the tens of thousands at this point in terms of infected, and that's known infected.
Almost 12,000. Well,
no, 21,000. About half of New York.
Yeah, 21,000
for context.
Wow. And 21,000 infected, half of them from New York State alone. Yeah, agreed. Like, I think there's a lot of praise for how people are managing things, but I would agree 100%. We're not done yet. And
right.
You know, like, even, and I'll be fair, like, you know, Trump or Cuomo, like, I'm like, Cuomo's doing a good job today, but we haven't even hit the middle of this yet.
No.
And this is going to get way worse before it gets better. And
we're also, going to have to deal with what's going to happen to the economy in the next 3 to 6 months, and the number of people that, and then the number of people that's going to kill. I mean, that's probably going to kill more people than this virus, unfortunately. That's just going to destroy people, and we're finally coming around to the idea. Even, Republicans are coming around to the idea that we got to just put money in people's pockets, and we gotta use the federal government for good on things like this.
Andrew Yang was a genius.
Yeah. We do though. I do need to point this out.
They turned out that Bernie Sanders is a genius too. Apparently there are no libertarians in foxholes.
Yeah. They did just stop. The FDA is not doing as many checks of our food now, so there's that.
Oh, good. But I think a thing that I was thinking about this, and I think we need a concrete plan from Washington. The House and the Senate, I believe, are still negotiating their plan. There's been some bills signed, but they're still working on future legislation. It did strike me that I think an interesting thing about the current state of our politics is that we have, I think, something in the realm of 470 members of Congress up for election this fall. You've got all of the House and 34 senators. They have an opportunity to send every single voter a check, and it's above board, for good reasons, and they can't seem to just get it together to do that.
Right.
What's happening in Washington?
It's the easiest thing you can do.
Yeah.
And why the heck? And this really frustrates me. Why the heck are Democrats, letting Republicans get to their left on sending out the. I mean, I love Chuck Schumer, but his $750 billion offer had nothing in there about direct cash payments. The Republican one was absurd because it cut off at 100,000, which, by the way, 100,000, 115, 120,000, that's middle class in New York.
Right.
And now, but you want to.
And LA.
And LA as well, exactly.
Well, but to be fair, that cut off at 90. I mean, you're right, but that did cut. I went for clarity. That cut off on the Republican one was for individuals, not collective households. I looked up, but
I recognize that. But
it's not irrelevant. I just want to make sure that point is there.
Yeah. Well, look, if we were Wall Street, we would have already gotten and blown $1 trillion by now.
Well, and even in the press conferences, Trump was vacillating when reporters were asking him on this money going to corporations to help their workers. Are you going to put something in the legislation to work with Congress so that they don't just do it to buy back stock? And he couldn't even answer that.
He doesn't know what that means.
Yeah, I know. You're right, James. He doesn't. But it's astounding.
We gotta stop pretending like he knows what shit means.
God, I know.
Trump, it's the money pocket good thing.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, it's the best. Yeah. I just want to
go ahead, Keisha.
No, go, Keisha.
I was gonna say I also
go, Keisha.
now is the time where, you know, obviously certain people are hurting more. Someone who makes $115,000 a year, whose money is tied up in their mortgage or whatever, may not have a lot of liquid cash. People
Right.
cash. Get it on the flip side. Let's talk about taxes whenever we get to our
Right.
tax day. I'm not saying people who can afford to won't pay it back, but we are in a situation where short term people need cash.
People need food. People need to pay their rent.
Yeah, and
Right.
to that point, Keisha, to your
JG
point,
Wentworth, I want my cash money now.
yes, but to that point, Keisha, like even people who might, you know, be okay money-wise, like putting money in their pockets so they spend money at the stores that are open.
Right.
Particularly, like I live in a neighborhood where it is, you know, like we've got a few chain grocery stores, but they're generally locally owned franchises. The people who own them are the owners, and you know they're not hurting for business right now. But if we run out of money, then they run out of money, and that's going to put them in trouble.
Well, I'll just piggyback on this. I'm a freelancer, and you know, in some of the political stuff that I am working on, I just had clients say to me, "We're just not, you know, we're going to keep our money, you know, because we don't know what's going to happen." It's like, but I have a contract with you. It's like, it doesn't matter, you know. So to Keisha, your point, it's not that I don't make a good living, but if I can't get clients to pay, then, you know, I'm basically eating Clementine's food.
And that's why it's like, part of me is like, I understand how messy it is. You're talking about some people who really don't need the money, but also then I'm on the flip side, like there are people who are desperate who might surprise people with their situations, right?
Right.
Or if you make $100,000, but you have to pay child support and your money is not going to your child, you know,
right?
Like we don't have time to get into the complexities of everyone's financial needs right now. Stop the fucking bleeding. Give people checks. We'll figure it out later. We push tax day.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll happily pay more money in taxes next year, just to give you an idea of how much I'm making right now. It's not that much. It's not that much. It's government. But, you know, like I think there's a lot of people who would agree, like let's deal with taxing that later. Here's the thing, though. One, we learned this week that there is someone who in government who is making a lot of money off this right now. Senator Richard Burr, the Republican from North Carolina. Additionally, it sounds like he and also Senator Loeffler from Georgia, story came out that the two of them were in a major briefing on just how bad COVID-19 could get and made a split decision to alert the country the only way they knew how, by selling off a bunch of stocks as quick as they could before the market crashed.
By the way, this was completely and totally independent of one another. It was just by a weird coincidence that the two of them were repeatedly seen sitting next to each other, listening to the impeachment trial. So, you know, that's all completely and totally coincidental. And
I think one other quick coincidence there.
Well, they also had very similar patterns of selling their stock. I think he had 33 transactions. I think she had 29. Now, in fairness, she may not have engaged in insider trading by getting this from that briefing. She may have just gotten it because her husband is the president of the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to bring up. So how do
Thank you for not stepping on my punchline.
No, you did. I'm sorry. You earned that, Robert. And the blowback on this was pretty fierce. Even Tucker Carlson took to TV to say that if the accusations around Burr were true, it was borderline treason and he should resign.
This is bad when Tucker Carlson is calling for Republicans to resign.
Right.
It's not a great
thing. Oh my, for me.
Yeah, instead of just making this face.
But there is one element to this, and I think Anne has a sense of where I'm going to be going with this. While what Burr, if the way it looks, what Burr did is absolutely wrong, and he probably should resign. And the Loeffler thing is also the case. However, there is also this question of how did this story break? And I have this hunch that there are, for different reasons, there were people that wanted to take both Burr and Loeffler out. Burr, we can criticize him in this all he wants, but he played it straight down the middle during the Russia investigation. Worked closely with the ranking member on that committee, Mark Warner.
Sorry, Robert, just to interrupt for clarification. Richard Burr is the chairman of the Senate Intel Committee.
Senate right. Intelligence Committee. Yeah, thank you very much. And he even subpoenaed Donald Trump Jr. as well, which got a lot of people upset. So particularly we've all been so focused on the virus story that there's been a lot of things that have been going on behind the scenes, such as the Department of Justice dropping the charges against the Russians indicted in the Mueller investigation. We know that
this is also the plot to Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Oh, right.
There you go. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody decided to leak, recommend to the reporters to take a look at some of Burr's transactions. And similarly, there are a number of people who didn't think that, like Trump did not want Kelly Loeffler appointed to that seat. He wanted his defender in the House, Doug Collins, to be the Senate appointment in that one. And Collins is still challenging Loeffler in a special election in November. So I find it just interesting that those two were the big names that came out of this story.
And another interesting quick thing on North Carolina politics. North Carolina has a Democratic governor, Roy Cooper, but North Carolina law says, and when a senator resigns, the governor can appoint the new senator. But North Carolina's law does insist that they appoint someone of the same political party of the person who got axed. So all that to say that, on the one hand, I saw Tucker Carlson speak out and I was like, yeah, all right, hooray, that racist was right once. But on the other side of it, it is likely, I won't say likely, it's very possible that, someone from Trump world said, Burr's good. You can push for them to take him out because it won't be a net loss to us. In fact, it would be a net gain for the president to have a Republican keep that seat and perhaps fill it with someone who, at a minimum, doesn't care as much about what.
And here's a key point. We're in the middle of this crisis where issues involving intelligence and things like that are absolutely and totally vital. So not only would Burr be taken out of the seat, there would be a Republican who they feel is better suited to the president and others in the intelligence chair seat. So it's there's a lot of things at play.
Well, as somebody who thinks that pretty much all the Republicans at this point who I'm not gonna go like defend any of the Republicans. Even if you're like a good Republican, you're part of that system, and you're a complete piece of shit for sticking up for as much as you're sticking up for. And I really don't give a shit if your whole career crashes and burns. And this idea that there are adults in the room is bullshit. Like it's not changing anything. It's not making anything better. It just makes things look a little bit better when Trump gets away with whatever he gets away with. So I don't have a problem with it. Fine, fuck him. Like, I don't care what happened to any of these people. If they committed the crime, they should absolutely.
Yeah. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all, James. I'm not condoning anything. I'm just saying that there are various internal party politics that are at play here, and I'm just putting more context into it. That's all.
Right. I'm saying good. I hope the division gets worse. I hope this division gets worse, and then and maybe I didn't eloquently speak about it quite as much as I wanted to earlier. But
you didn't eloquently speak about it when you called them pieces of shit.
No, right, no, that one I meant. No, but I meant earlier when I was talking about the Bushes. But the Republicans that are just sort of going along with things and hoping that things will get better when Trump is gone. I want them gone too, because to me, they are a huge part of this problem and how we ended up in this situation. So I don't really want them to be around for whatever happens. Them trying to run out the clock is a huge problem.
Yeah, I think the word you're looking for, the word you're looking for, James, is enabling. Yeah.
Yes, there we go. Thank you.
They had the chance to get rid of him. What, 3 months ago? They could have been and gotten rid of him. Yeah. They didn't.
I do think Robert A. Jordie have a good point. There is part of me, I was like, oh no, if this is intentional and they're trying to bring on folks that are more Trumpy, Lord help us. And I think that's the point. It's not the lack of indictment. I think I'm scared of it because I'm just like, I just want to fucking stop the bleeding. And to add more fuel to the fire, I knew in 2016 when I said Trump's gonna kill people.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember when we were like, oh, that's hyperbolic, give him a chance. And now we're like, God.
It's happening.
Yeah, and
we can't go outside.
Right. Or be in each other's presence.
Like a couple of years ago, people were like, oh, give him a chance. And now 3 years later, the government's like, it would be best if you never leave your homes until.
Right. Well, can I just bring up another point too? And this is my personal pet peeve is, the Never Trump movement started, fantastically. And, we're all going to, there's a small group of us. We're small but mighty. And I did a Facebook post about this about 2 weeks ago. It's like, make a decision. You know what? Are you Never Trump just to see yourself on TV and just, get a paid contract through CNN and write a few pieces for some of these newspapers? Are you going to get your hands dirty and get this guy out and actually cross parties and do something to make sure that this guy never sees the light of day past November 7th? And I got in a lot of trouble because I was like, okay, Never Trumpers in name only, either put up or shut up, because they all want it to be, well, we want the party to go back to the way it was. Bullshit. It's never going back. This is his party. He owns it. It's a natural and viral disaster, no pun intended, Robert, and it's never going back. Ever.
Yeah. No,
so you may get what you want, James. You may get
No.
It's good.
And I agree.
Yeah.
Love you.
Speaking of,
I love you too.
Robert, go ahead, and then we'll transition to our next topic.
Yeah. This awful moment that we're in is sort of the goodbye to all that moment. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of issues and things like that seemed really front and center and outrage, and we're doing some personal emotional triage right now, and there's a lot of political and broader kind of triage of what was important and what is no longer important, and that party's gone completely. In that context, and I know Tom wants to move on. This just came up on Politico. The Justice Department has quietly asked Congress for the ability to ask chief judges to detain people indefinitely without trial during emergencies. Part of a push for new powers that comes as the coronavirus spreads through the United States. So that's what we're facing in the days and weeks ahead. Things that and these are probably powers that may end up getting slipped in to the next emergency bill. So everybody is focusing on, they're sending us money here, they're sending some money to this business and over there. Meanwhile, they just vote in a legislation that removes the Fifth Amendment or removes part of the Fifth Amendment. I mean, this is this is the moment. This is the dangerous time we're in right now.
Well, and this is why reporters like you, Robert, and others, and hats off to Rachel Maddow, need to be talking about this stuff, for the majority of their broadcasts, because you guys think FISA warrants were scary after 9/11. These guys, he's got a whole cadre in presidential personnel and in his White House counsel's office looking for old laws like the Stafford Act that everybody got that was a rumor, but the Pentagon, whatever that Pentagon Act was, where he can, divert money to do shit like this. So sorry, Tom, I know we're moving on, but
no problem.
This is if they're going to do this is the time. We've closed the border with Mexico and Canada for the time being. I can easily see a world where that just never goes back to normal. Like that, in power, that's just the way it is. We become even more isolationist. And there was a few weeks ago, I think it was the first response to the coronavirus. There were Republicans trying to slip in like anti-abortion language in the legislature. So I think
they just closed the Ohio governor just closed the abortion clinics in Ohio. Or is trying to.
They're good. So speaking of,
you have to maintain a 6-foot distance between your mother and
no.
Stop it! No.
We all
all right.
You
gave me a great.
Abort that joke, Robert.
Well, no. First, he has to look at it on a monitor.
Speaking of terrible things that make us all groan, the Democrats. We are I was really glad everyone had an ending line that made for a nice transition, and then we had a moment with groans. I was like, nailed it. History wanted to come this way. So last week, this week we did have primaries in the states of Florida, Illinois, and Arizona. Joe Biden won, and Biden, it seems at this point, is all but the presumptive nominee. He's ahead delegate-wise in the math, but we don't have another race for a long time. It's between him and Bernie Sanders. I think, first of all, I want to talk about the Democrats quick, but I want to have a quick question. Ohio canceled its primary on Tuesday. And I want to just quickly ask, how we feel about canceling primaries, because I am really split. What's that? Or delayed it. Sorry, not canceled. Thank you. Delayed it. I'm not sure how I feel about them. On the one hand, I recognize we are in the middle of a national emergency and people being close to each other is a direct threat to life. On the other hand, you can feel Donald Trump salivating at the precedent set of delaying elections.
Yep.
What do we think about Ohio postponing their election?
I didn't like it. Precisely because of how you just concluded that opening question. Now the presidential election is set in the Constitution, and there really is there's very little leeway, because it's not just the actual election day. It's also when the Electoral College meets, and when Congress has to return to swear in a new president. So those are
and inauguration day too.
And inauguration. Yeah, I think that's when the president.
It's in the Constitution of the swearing in. Yeah.
So you've got at least three constitutionally denominated dates involving that. So that is a fact. That is a fact. But I don't like the idea, particularly when we were Mike DeWine, the Governor DeWine, had said
of
Ohio had said that he said we've had high numbers of early voting and mail-in and absentee and so forth. We're going ahead with this. And then basically, I think less than 24 hours ahead of time, he said that he wanted to postpone it. Now, I'm not trying to ding DeWine on this. I think he's been one of the really great governors in handling all of this. And I think the Secretary of State in Ohio is a Democrat. So they were both in agreement. They said that they were working with the head public health official in this. But changing that at such a late time, it very much troubled me. And again, it's a legitimate tough call. I think I would have been more like Florida and weighed in the direction of allowing it to go ahead.
I think what's so hard about that, because I do think it's problematic that we waited within hours, less than 24 hours, but it's such an interesting moment to see how fragile our democracy is, in the sense that like we haven't thought through this. And I think what's hard is, unfortunately, Trump is a symptom of all of this, and that I think like this is a great example of where were the plans, right? Like there should have been planning. There's a lot of ways to continue the primaries going. There's ways to structure this, but at the end of the day, there was no plan moving forward, and we're making so many last minute decisions. I think it truly puts our democracy in danger. I want to feel like we're definitely going to have a presidential election. I do not feel any sense of security right now around that, and that scares the shit out of me.
Well, this is, I think this.
Hang on, Robert. I want Andrew to go ahead.
Go ahead.
To speak to that point, we do have a lot of mechanisms built into the Constitution guaranteeing us, the presidential election and the swearing in and all of that. But we also have a conservative-leaning Supreme Court. We also have a Mitch McConnell who is very adamant about speaking into some of those judges' ears, and not to sound too conspiratorial, but like at this stage of the game, it feels like anything could happen. So it just feels like we need to be very vigilant about making sure that those mechanisms stay in place and that we are meeting all those deadlines, hitting all of our elections, and
right.
not us off track.
And rethinking if, maybe this is the time we really need to be thinking about how do we mail ballots.
Right. Yes.
States do it. My brother was he was planning to be out of town for the Washington Democratic primary. But all of their ballots are, it's automatic. Like you get it in the mail. I think Baltimore and I don't know if it's all of Maryland. I know in Baltimore it can be the same thing.
We're New York State residents. We're voting absentee, even though we're in
right.
So
for
For now. But there's no reason we can't.
Voter fraud. We got them.
No, but Keisha,
we're supposed to be in New York. Tell me how to get there, James.
Right.
By the way,
but Keisha, I agree. Here's where I really agree with you. It's, and again, I don't want to get James all revved up about this, but having lived through
I can mute him.
and the recount and all of that, there is no excuse for this day and age, 20 years later, that we don't have mail-in ballot, that we don't have a secure system to do this online, there are a myriad of ways that we can work in a democracy, show our democracy and participate in our democracy that doesn't require us to walk into a polling place. While I love the feeling of walking into a polling place, but I thought, with even the fact that California only has some large counties that have mail-in ballots, why isn't the whole state that way?
I think,
I think
hang on, Robert. I want to dovetail off what Ann said. You mentioned 2000. We can go a year later. Like September 11th, 2001 was a primary in New York State. We are aware that a disaster, a national emergency, can happen on a primary day. We've had 19 years to figure out a better solution, and we haven't yet. I want to talk about one last thing before we get to that. I do want to just quickly on the Democrats. I think a general question for everyone. What would you want to be seeing from a Democratic nominee right now, or a Democratic candidate? We have someone who's close to it. We have Sanders is still, I'd say, in this, but it's very hard for him to win.
Yeah.
But I think this week we saw a lot of criticism from the fact that the Democrats kind of went silent as a mechanism. There were individuals. Follow Chris Murphy and Brian Schatz, senators from Connecticut and Hawaii, because they are great on Twitter and they speak out all the time. But the party was not as vocal and as on message as it could be. What, from an for James and Andrew and Keisha as Democrats, and Robert and Ann as people who know what it's like to have an opposition party,
or trying to take over our party now.
Yeah, which honestly at this
the only
point,
parasite running around these days.
Yeah.
Go ahead, guys. At this point, we'll take it. But what do you think you'd like to see more of out of them?
I think the thing that this is where it would have been really nice if everybody had gotten behind some version of Medicare for all. We had a chance to do it, and boy, did they step in it, and they botched it. And so the talk about not planning for something, they really never. The Democrats didn't plan for something like this either. They totally blew it, and so now something like this happens, and they can't come out with a cohesive message because 65% of our party, 65% of our party wants Medicare for all, but sort of the candidate doesn't, and the powers that be do not. So we sort of can't do anything about it now. So unfortunately, we can't come out with some cohesive message about, guys, this is why we need that thing we've been talking about, which would be so powerful right now. We could be destroying with it right now. Instead, we're stuck.
Does this open the door for Joe Biden to potentially adapt some of those policies and kind of roll them into more of the mainstream platform?
I would hope. Yeah. That'd be great, but I don't. He's also
I'm doubtful that would happen. But I mean,
go ahead, Keisha.
I would say on top of that, because yes, I think whether you want to have this conversation or not, we have to have the conversation, because think about people who are in the hospital right now getting medical bills.
Right.
And they don't have jobs. I think we also finally have to talk we are talking about this social infrastructure, not because, oh, yay, entitlements, but we have to stop the bleeding, right? Now is the time where I think we can gracefully pivot to Medicare for all. I think universal basic income has to come on the table. I think we are going to have 20 to 30% unemployment. So I think it's not like, oh, idealistic. It's, do you want the purge to happen? It's purge day.
Woo! You got it in there.
You watch the movie. This is the day that the purge happens.
So
I went out and jaywalked.
Yeah, and then when James was out, I home invaded and killed his roommate.
Tom, don't out yourself on a Zoom.
Yeah.
It's legal on Purge Day.
It
it's
is
tomorrow
legal.
that I'm in trouble. That's my question about the Purge.
The Purge. In those movies, it never rains on Purge Day.
It never rains on Purge Day, ever. It only got cold once. Yeah.
Hey, Keisha, finally, now with the curfew, we literally can go outside and be arrested for walking while black.
Yes.
How hard should we laugh at that joke?
Hey, Keisha.
If I laugh really hard at that joke, is that problematic? I just want to...
Somebody was afraid to get on the elevator with me, and I was like, oh, so that's what it's like.
But all the time.
Yeah.
That's right. It's true. I can remember all those years of white women practicing social distancing by they were just ahead of their time. We didn't know that.
I think we can let's leave it there. I want to do one last thing. We can call it a day. Right now, everyone's stuck inside. Looking for things to do. And I put a question to you guys, which if you don't remember it, it's okay. You can take a few minutes to figure out an answer of something to recommend people read, watch, or do from home. And I'm going to make it really easy on myself. Something to our viewers right now. I recommend watch Astronomy Club on Netflix.
Yep.
Read the New York Daily News. They're
Yay!
great, and they give you 10 free articles a month before the paywall kicks in. So suck on that, Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
Other things to read, watch, or do.
So there's a book. The book I'm going to recommend is easily available on Amazon. It's called The Fourth Turning, and it's the authors are William Strauss and Neil Howe. It came out in 1997. And it analyzes America from a generational archetype perspective, and it was its predecessor, by the way. I don't have a physical copy of The Fourth Turning here with me, or I can't write it, but its predecessor was this one called Generations by the same authors, and that came out in 1991 back when Ann and I were working together at the Republican National Committee, and a colleague of ours turned me onto that book, and it was a book, and we're talking 29 years now. It was a book that completely and totally changed my worldview on how to look at history. And this book and its follow-up perfectly to the year predicted the crisis of 2020. I mean, they didn't know what it was going to be like, but they said, given the way that the cyclical nature of history, this era was due for a crisis to start in 2020 and go on for, and this is the equivalent of the same equivalent of a crisis in terms of how generations replicate themselves as America's Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and Depression/World War II. So this is the era. They basically break down into like 80-year segments or so. So this is where we are. So The Fourth Turning by Strauss and Howe, I recommend everybody read. And it's the parts of it you'll find scary, but there is some cause for hope. So check that out.
I'm going to go on a lighter note. I have been rereading my favorite author, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I recommend everybody do that as well. If you haven't read the Pat Hobby stories by F. Scott Fitzgerald, especially Keisha and Andrew being in LA, these were the stories that he wrote when people were publishing his books, and he went out to be a screenwriter to make some cash to keep Zelda in the loony bin, and they are hysterical. The Pat Hobby stories by F. Scott Fitzgerald. What I'm watching is a lot of old movies. I think to know where we are in entertainment, we have to know where we've come. Sometimes I'm turning down the sound to just watch the acting to see if I can figure out the story by what they're doing. Started watching Little Fires Everywhere and was really disappointed in it. I think it's just a bad version of Big Little Lies, but it's, again, the storytelling's just very, very choppy. I also recommend Astronomy Club. I binged the whole thing. It was fantastic. And, and anytime you could see James Hesky do his stand-up, whether it's virtual or in person, when we can all leave the house again, absolutely.
I did just put out a tape, so.
Good. Great.
It was sad, James. It was the saddest thing I've ever seen committed to tape.
It was a tape even. My God.
James, Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna buck the current trend on here and say, a lot of people are consuming a lot of media while they're home, but I think this is a great opportunity to also not consume any media and unplug a little bit. I think in our day-to-day lives, in the before times,
before the upside
down, we would, we get home, we put on a Netflix show or whatever. This is a really unique opportunity. We're all locked in our homes to kind of take up that hobby that you've always wanted to, do that thing you've been meaning to do. This is a good opportunity to get small, metaphorically, and like focus on the little things, even things as simple as like connecting with your loved ones. I talk to my parents way more now than I did before.
Right.
And I'm finding it very emotionally enriching in a way that I wasn't expecting. So yeah, I would encourage people to like whatever that thing is that you've been meaning to do, if you know, you want to learn to play the piano, learn how to juggle, you know, learn how to braid your own hair, whatever it is, like, this is a really unique time in American history. And whenever we are going to get out of it, whenever that is, we're probably not going to have this much downtime again. So,
right.
Yeah.
Donde está el baño? That's what I'm taking up.
Taking up toilets.
Duolingo. Yeah.
Good one.
I will piggyback off in a much darker tone. Robert George, don't you say it. And say the thing I'm reading right now is Uninhabitable Earth, because I think it's time for us to use this to get real about the state of not just our country, not just our government, but the world is unstable. And that, like, how we move and the fact that pandemics will increase because of melting ice caps, because governments are changing. We're going to have resource wars. We're going to have to rethink supply and demand. And this is a great time to rethink how we share the planet with each other, and, you know, connecting it to UBI and all of those things. It's not because it's hippy dippy, but because we're all going to share this planet. Some of us won't make it out. What is the world we want to create? Also, I think now's a great time to learn another language, because we're going to have to become global citizens in a way we've never thought about before. So why not take a moment and support, like, Duolingo or any of those other apps that this is sponsored by Duolingo, right?
Yeah, Babel. Yeah.
And
Babel. Rosetta Stone. You know, you get it.
Yeah. We'll take all of their sponsorships.
Exactly. And I realized that I didn't give my watching note, and I by the way, I do love what Andrew and Keisha said about those, like, picking up the hobbies and making actual, using your phone for other things other than just video and games, you know, actually using the headset and mouth apparatus to talk to somebody. But I also throw in that I try and if I throw on Netflix or Hulu or something like that, I try and divorce myself from anything that is necessarily contemporary or familiar to me, and so I find myself catching up on British, Canadian, and Australian legal and crime dramas, like Murdoch Mysteries and Janet King and stuff like that.
I love Canadian crime dramas. Moose Detective is one of my favorite shows.
I love Father Brown.
I do too.
That's another one.
Me too.
I stand Father
James,
Brown.
we're gonna write the pilot for Moose Detective during this.
Now's a great time.
Oh, James, you're always horny.
James, anything you're watching or reading or want to?
No, not really.
Nope. Just get through the day. Yeah, you can watch My Ceiling as I sink into
things
despair.
I'm recommending. Crying. I really recommend crying. Just alone in the shower, just curled up in a ball. Make sure the water is like 85 to 90 degrees. A book I'll recommend is Stumbling on Happiness by Daniel Gilbert. It's a book I really like. I usually listen to books because I'm illiterate, and but usually because I listen to books while I walk, and so I listened to it again recently for the second time, and it's great. It's sort of about. It's not really about times like these, but it's always related to whatever you're going through. So a lot of it's about how we're just not good at predicting the future and emotionally our future. So right now we are really freaked out, and we have damn good reason to be freaked out. But we are going to think about we're going to. It's hard for us to divorce ourselves from that and to think, oh, in 6 months we'll be okay, or in 3 years we'll be okay. So it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff like that. It's very well written, very interesting, very funny. And so either buy it or the book or download it on Audible. He reads it and he's great. So that would be the book. As far as things I'm watching, I'm watching the Bud Dwyer press conference instead of the sorry. That's just for Tom.
There was a Bud Dwyer joke. You missed it when newsboy Phil Casale stopped by. So Google Bud Dwyer if you guys have time.
Okay.
Yeah, don't
Google images.
Don't Google video. Yeah. No Google. But I watched. I've been on a little bit of a John Mulaney kick.
Oh, nice.
So I watched the John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch the other night. I finally got around to that. It's great. So it's his like kids special, which is just so absurd and so funny. And then I rewatched Oh Hello, which I hadn't seen the Netflix special, but I saw when it was on Broadway. And what I wasn't expecting was it was actually nice to watch something that was a live show, because it was like, oh, I haven't been in a crowd in a week. Yep. So it kind of felt good to be in a crowd, even if it was just virtually. So that was that would, maybe I might do more of that. So watch concert footage or watch something like that makes me feel like, oh yeah, people, that feeling. All right, that thing.
Absolutely.
Can I leave you with something that for the Moose crowd?
Oh yeah.
This is the newest addition to Xanthi, my friend's family. This is the new poodle that we broke quarantine to go to Gettysburg to get, and his name is Moose.
Oh,
there we go.
So just some nice, uplifting,
That's great.
That was a wonderful way to end this conversation. Andrew, you got something?
For something to actually watch if you're that bored, and it's porn, like lots and lots of porn.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, is Pornhub free yet? It should be.
Yeah.
So far only.
Also, remember, stay sex positive. Make your own.
Right. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Everybody,
that's
whether
good
you're
advice.
by yourself or with a friend,
We're-
we can porn.
Yeah, we're all gonna need self-tapes.
Let's be honest. You know that literally everyone in America has at some point this week been like, well, nothing's happening at work. I'm going to go masturbate.
Right.
From the president all the way down to the lowest person in the
every part of your body needs that sanitizer.
Ooh.
Really.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Right now, my dick has a dry cough. Like that is. There is.
And I think we're going to leave it there. That has been it for our first test run of an electoral dysfunction. Zoom. I want to say a real quick thank you to Kevin Scott and Joanne Harris, who did the animation and music for our opening, to our buddy Phil Casale, Newsboy Phil, for stopping by, and to my good friend Ned Thorne for packaging all this stuff together. Thank you very much to our panel. Thank you, James Hesky.
Thank you.
Not up. Thank you, Keisha Zollar. Thank you, Andrew Kimler. Thank you, Ann Herberger. Thank you, Robert George.
Hey guys, thank you guys.
Warren. We'll do this again at some point, probably.
Yeah.
Let's see. I gotta see how I'm feeling.
What else? What else are we gonna be doing?
I mean, we might all be sick a week from now, so recovering might be part of it. Oh,
There goes James.
Another is now into the even higher tens of thousands. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Take care.